Here are 5 amazing Canva text effects to level up any of your designs. Ready? Let's do this. Hi, my lovely people, it's Natalia and welcome back to my channel where I help you create better content and grow on social media. Let's jump right into the tutorial. The first one is a fun way to recreate a stencil effect in Canva. It's so cool because you can use it in many different ways, be it with bold headlines that really help you get noticed or promotional posts that attract attention. Let's start with this branding for a florist. This florist shop is called Snowdrop and we've got a logo for it. And let's say I want to transform this logo and create a stencil from it. I will just duplicate this page and I've got all of my elements grouped just so that it's easier to maneuver. What I'm going to need first is a circle. So I'm just going to hit C and that pulls up that shape. I don't need to go to elements. I just can do this and I'm going to just grab a color from my logo just to create that uniform effect. I'm going to just drag it to the sides by holding Alt like this and to create an ellipsis. Now, what I want to do is to actually create a border. So I'm just going to add that border from the top panel in here like this. You can see the black kind of coming in, and that's going to be the basis of my outline. Now I can go back and actually use that same color in here and then go back to the color of the fill and go for no color. And that creates that outline. What I'm going to do now is to just hold Alt and duplicate that same element and just make it smaller like this. I might need to kind of drag the sides, but I want to also just make that border a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to go to border weight in here and just create that very thin line. I can just kind of balance it out to make the space even, just like this. We've got the stamp in here, but now we want to make it feel a little bit more organic, given that we need that effect that it was actually kind of stamped. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be kind of dusted through some. You can search by, stencil texture, something like grungy, but I'm going to go for dust texture, which I find gives me kind of the most variety in here. Now, I want something that is a little bit on the denser side. So something like this would not possibly work just because it's not giving us enough of that kind of dust effect. So maybe I should go for something like this in here to see if this is going to work. I think it should. And now the trick is to actually use the same color as your background. So I'm going to go for the color and actually choose the same one that was used before. And you can see in here now that it's actually creating that stamped effect. Now, of course, from here, you can make it kind of smaller, make it bigger, make sure that you're using something that really works for your type of an image. I'm just going to crop it slightly so it's just easier to maneuver across my design, just like this. And I think if you want something a little bit more dense, or something a little less dense like this, I think this is something that potentially looks really good. So I'm just going to use it like this. And from here, you can also just select all of them and group them. Once you know this text effect, you can use it for so many different things. You can create kind of classic stamps like this. You can create kind of logo variations, or it's very useful for mock-ups of any kind when you're creating designs with letters, with tote bags, certificates, etc. So it's a very useful effect to know. Text effect number 2, warp text. The second effect is achieved through a free app available within Canva. It's called Typecraft and it allows you to go beyond the classic text effects found through the text box features. Normally, you wouldn't be able to really manipulate the text to change its shape, but with this one, you can. It's great for more abstract designs where you need something a little bit more kind of trippy, and this warp text is perfect for it. I'll show you how to do it based on this collage. Perfect. So let's say we're starting with this collage in here and it obviously lacks a bit of text. So what I'm going to do is to go to the apps and search for Typecraft. Now from here, you're going to see this icon, just click on it and you'll see this panel right here. Now the first box gives you your text options. I'm going to go for mindset, just like in my finished example. And below, you're going to be able to choose the different fonts. Now this is a bit of a limitation of this specific app because it's not really allowing you to use all the fonts that are available through Canva, but you still have quite a variety in here. You can just scroll down, you see the name of the font and then below what it looks like. So you can take a look and see what's going to work for your design specifically. Now, I know exactly what I'm going for, so I'm just going to search for a rainfall, and I have this kind of black font in here. So I'm going to just choose this one, and I can actually go for different effects, for unfilled, for an outline. So that gives you a bit of variety in here, but I just want none of the effects, none of the styles, and I'm going to go for my color in here. Very useful tool is to know the specific hex code that you're looking for. So if I wanted to match it to this specific color, then I could just pull the hex code from here. But for now, I'm going to just disregard it to just add this text to my design. And as you can see, it just added it like this. And from here, you can always kind of go back in here and start manipulating your text. So for my first one, I want to create something a little bit more like this. I'm going to just kind of drag the sides like that to create a bit of that warped effect in here. And I'm going to do the same thing in here. What I'm trying to maintain is that straight line in here, because I don't want the letters to skew too much on either side. So I'm just trying to make sure that this remains semi-straight. You can use these lines in here as well, just to manipulate the curvature of this text as well. So I can go kind of a little bit higher up in here for a more kind of slanted look. I can do it like this a little bit, and I can just add it to my element. I can just go for update, and that's going to give me that effect in here. Now, what I'm doing in here as well is to just duplicate that same thing. So I'm holding Alt and dragging the same element down below. And as you can see, you can go back and jump to that effect within the app to manipulate it further. So from here, I'm just going to drag this one a little bit down and create that curvature in here, because I want to make sure that it kind of matches this line in here. So it's creating that dent above the text. So let's go for maybe something like this in here, just like that. And I'm going to try to update, and you can kind of go back and forth, try to find the best curvature for this. I can kind of make it bigger, maybe less of a slant in here. Let's update the element. And this is how I'm working out that specific effect that I want to achieve within this app. Okay, let me move both of them, and I'll just keep doing this for the rest of my text, just like this. And another tip from me in here, if, again, you don't want these sides to kind of, these letters to skew too much. As I said, keep these lines straight, but also make sure that this middle dot in here is really aligned roughly with the bottom one, because that's going to kind of affect how slanted the text is in here. So I'm just going to go for something like this. Now that I've got all of them sorted, I can start changing my colors. So again, I can go back to Typecraft and actually just paste that hex code in here. And just like this, that should update my element like that, as you can see. Now for this one, I want to actually create that outline effect. It's actually called Unfilled with this one. So again, I'm going to change the color of the outline to the same color like this. And you can change the border width from this panel right here. Again, update element. And my last color is gonna be this one. So just applying it. Now, of course, I want all of my elements selected. I can make them smaller or bigger. And I'm just gonna move it kind of across like this. And I'm gonna position them differently. So I'm from the top position, and I want them underneath that butterfly and the woman in here. This is a very useful effect to know for, things like collages, for t-shirt designs, and any other kind of like social media designs that need a bit of that visual edge and a bit more of that abstract feel to them. Text effect number 3, transparent outline. This text effect works amazingly well for videos, but can be used for static images too. It looks pretty cool, so it's great to add it to your arsenal, again, especially since it's so versatile. First, what we need is some frames. So we're going to go to the Elements tab here in the left panel, and then scroll down for frames, not to mistake them for grids. Grids are for something slightly different, but we're going to go for frames in here, and you can actually go ahead and search for letter, just like this. And you'll see all sorts of different letters, and there are actually different fonts. So do pay attention to which fonts you're choosing to not mix them too much, because you want to go for the same effect. As you can see, these ones in here are very, very similar, but this R in here or this E in here belong to a different sets of fonts. So you can kind of scroll down and see what you like. As you can see, this one is capital letter, but if you scroll down, you're going to be able to see the lowercase ones. Now for this design, I want a serif font, something a little bit more elegant. So I can just scroll down, and as you can see, this one matches my style. So I'll go for this S right here, and I just will add all of my frames just to create that text. And I can start pulling them apart just like this and making sure that I'm adjusting the sizing. And as you can see, this one is actually the same size as the P, and we all know that this is not how it works. So I'm just going to align it slightly with this lower edge in here, just like this, and you can keep doing it with the rest of the elements. Now that they're all properly sized, I'm going to select all of them and just make them smaller together. So that maintains that sizing that I've just created. Now from here, I can again arrange them properly. So I'll start with my S. Now the next thing to pay attention to in here is the letter spacing, the kerning. So you need to make sure that all of them are balanced nicely together. So I'm just gonna drag it by nudging it with my arrow keys of the keyboard, and just to bring them a little bit closer or further apart, and to kind of balance them nicely, just as they would be in any proper design. I can move it all to the middle just like this, and we're sorted with the arranging of the frames part. Now for this design, I want to use a video. So I'm going to go and search for soft play just like this, just to find something for my specific design. Let's see, maybe something like this, or something a little bit more dynamic like this one. So I'm just going to click to add it to my design like this, and I'm just going to drag it kind of to the middle. Now what I want to do is to position it to back, and here I'll show you a simple aligning trick that you can use to design all sorts of frame-based graphics. Now if you want to retain that position for all of the different letters in here, what you want to do is to then grab this layer below, and then by holding Alt again, just duplicate it and drag it to our first letter. Now from here, I'm going to double click on it. And what you want to do is to make sure that it's aligned the same way as your previous layer. And since I filled the canvas with that video specifically, so I just need to find the edges. So I'm dragging it to the edges like this. And as you can see, this should perfectly align, hopefully. Obviously, this is a video and it started playing, so it's not on the same frame. So it might be useful to go back and to actually kind of revert back to that first frame. So I can always kind of go back in here and just to kind of retain that frame. And as you can see, this letter just disappeared, and this is exactly what we want. Now, what you could do to make it easier for you is to just lower the transparency. And I've actually, as you can see, chosen a background. We've started with the background color of this nice orange in here. So you can see that's below. And what I can do is to just slightly lower the transparency, and I'll be able to see how well this letter aligns. And obviously these letters will be visible. So I'll copy another one, just get the transparency up, put it back in here, and again, align. This is something that you want to keep doing for every single one of those letters. So I'll just quickly do that in the background, and I'll get back to you in a second. This is a really great trick to align all of your frames perfectly using the edges as the point of reference. You can also just remove that layer if you want that sort of an effect, but I want to retain it and drop the opacity of that background video to kind of a level like 20, for example, so that when it plays, everything still is kind of smooth and aligned. Now, of course, contrast is very important for legibility and to make sure that everyone can actually see what's happening on the specific design. So another trick that I've got for you is to go to edit video in here at the top. Of course, if you're using photos for this, just go to edit photos. And from the adjust tab, which is the second tab here at the top, you can then drop the brightness or up the brightness if you're using a darker background, and then maybe kind of change the contrast to a lower bit, just like this, just so you are having a bit more of that contrast created between your background and your foreground. And from here, you can then use it as is or add any other elements to your design, just like this. You can always go back and change the color of your background like this to maybe something lighter in this case, and then go back like this. You can maneuver kind of the different styles the way you want. As you can see here in my example, I've got the previous one. I've added some of the kind of different little graphics in here. So you can do a lot of things with it. And then if you want to see it, because this is just a static design that I've got, if you want to see the video play from here, I can just go to my pages view like this and then hit duration, just like that. And from here, I will be able to play it and show you how perfectly aligned everything is. And I think it's a really fun thing to use, whether for kind of organic social media posts, for your ads, anything that you really need this effect for. It's really versatile. And of course, this works brilliantly with static images as well. You could use it as the basis for your other designs. So it's a really cool kind of not only an aligning trick, but also a cool text effect to have in your arsenal. Text effect number 4, negative letter. This is a brilliant way to highlight a portion of an image with text creatively. Granted, it's kind of tricky to design since you have to choose the right word, the right font, the right image, and create a synergy between them all. But hopefully this mini tutorial will show you exactly how to do it. Now, for this one, what we need first is a really strong word. This type of a text effect tends to work better with very distinctive letters. O is, of course, something that's very easy to replicate, but I can't imagine it going well with things like a U or a Y, anything that really gives you a bit of that edge so you can actually overlay this bigger letter over the smaller ones. I'll explain that while designing. So I'll add my text first. So I've just hit T and I'm going to go to the top in here and actually search for something specific. I think I've got this one in mind. This is Bernoru. So this is the font that I want to use for this design. And I want to make it as big as possible. Now I'm going with the word flow to recreate that same design. I'm going to move this one to the side like this and keep adding other text. So I'm going to just duplicate it and add L. The key here is to really have small spaces between letters and then to make the negative one slightly bigger than the rest. So I'll show that to you in just a second. But I will, for now, just retain that O like this. And I'm just going to add W. Now, what we want, again, is that overlap. So I'm going to send this O to the front. And from here, just kind of overlay it on top of my other letters, just like this. And I've just changed the color to make sure that I see it. Now what I want, of course, is a frame because we are using frames for this specific design. So let's go back to frames and we know we need to look for a specific letter. Now from here, of course, you won't have the same exact font that you've got. So it's very important to choose the letter that really matches the style of your font. So I'm going to go for this kind of classic O in here, just add it to the front like this. And then from here, of course, you can see that it's not matching, but don't worry about this because we're looking for that edge a lot more than we're looking for the inside. So what we want is for this frame to be just slightly larger than the rest so that we've got this curvature here on the side. I'm going to just remove that O from below. You can see that L peeking from behind. So we just want to kind of move it ever so slightly, maybe just like this. Okay, I've repositioned it slightly just to make sure that this L is not really visible. Now we want to find the perfect image for it. I love to highlight people with it, but of course, use it creatively using for other types of images. And I'm going to just find that yoga photo. Now I found the image, so I'm just going to send it backwards just like this. And as you can see, I'm trying to align it to that frame so that the majority of the image that I want to highlight is actually retained within that shape of the frame. And just like before, what I need to do is to actually grab that image, duplicate it, and then insert it into my frame. Of course, this image was actually larger, so I've cropped it. So now I cannot really use these edges to help me align them perfectly, but I can try to do it manually. I think it's going to be absolutely fine. The key here is to line them together, and just when you see those fuzzy edges, just make it slightly bigger, slightly smaller, and then try to align it as best as you can, just like that. And there is a bit of an artifact in here, but again, spend a bit more time on it than I am, and you've got your text effect in here. Another great way to make sure that this letter is actually slightly visible is to go to Elements and search for a shadow. From here, you need to find something that's slightly kind of circular, maybe something like this would work. And I'm just going to align it perfectly like this underneath that frame, then position it backwards so that it's kind of below our text. And from here, I can drop the transparency to this. Now, I don't necessarily like it for this design because it's quite minimalistic, but for this one, I think it works, especially with this kind of silhouette style of a photo. So you can use it for this. You can see in here, that's another way of using this O. Of course, O is the go-to because it's got the most curvature out of all the letters. But if you do use something like a U or, again, other letters with this curvature, make sure, again, to position the letters close to each other and then overlay this frame to take a bit of that space so that this letter is actually visible. Effect number 5. Text outline. This is a great way to pair a brand image with a strong message. Not only does it add visual interest, but it's also quite a versatile effect too. The text can be partial or go all the way around the subject and works for all sorts of fun designs too, a collage included. The important step here is to choose the right font that first matches the vibe of the design, but also works well for this type of movement around the subject. For this type of an effect, what I like to do first is to start with my text. I'm hitting T for the text box, and then I'm pasting over my quote. Of course, you can just use a single word. You can use all the different things in here. So just kind of adjust it to what you want. But if I start with something a little bit longer, an actual kind of line of text, I prefer to have it all laid out first. I'm going to change the font to Helvetica to my classic. I'll go for something like 36 and I'll make it bold. So I'll go for something like this. And now what I like to do is to just kind of make it smaller like this because we want to work in parts. We never want to have whole complete sentences and then to adjust them because you want to make sure that you're following the line along your subject. So this is why I like to have it on the side like this. I prefer to have it aligned to the left. Now, for my first one, I'm just going to duplicate this one and then remove this portion. And now what you want to do is to go to Effects and go to Shape here at the bottom and use the curve. Now, what you want is to slightly curve all of your letters just so that they match kind of the curvature, again, of this subject. Now, the more edges that you've got in here, the smaller text you're going to have to work with. I can see already that this on is going to be way too much for this effect in here. So I'm just going to go with UR. You can choose whatever distance you want. I want to work at a slight distance in here. So I'm just going to go with UR just in here and go to Effects. And again, play around with this curve in here and see if there's something specific that you can kind of find that matches that edge. Perfect. I've got R, so I can go back to here or I can pull from here. I can go for on, copy this one and just paste this on. Now, I know I need a very small word in here just because I need that curvature to really speak kind of volumes in here. It's a very, very small word. So I'm going to go all the way back like this. And sometimes you may need to adjust the spacing. So if I go to spacing here at the top and adjust letter spacing, I may sometimes need to make it a little bit bigger than the previous ones, just because when you add a bit more of that curvature, those letters can kind of overlap, and this is not what we want. So I can just add a bit more in here. I've got this on, then I need the Eve. Now, I think I can go for the Eve of. Let's see if this whole thing is going to fit. I think it's going to be, again, way too much. So this is how you work off of it. But just like this, I think this may work. I might ever so slightly adjust, again, the effect from here and making a little bit more curvy, just like that, and make sure it matches the previous text. I think this is a bit too close. So again, I can use my nudge, so my keyboard arrows, just to make sure that I'm placing it very precisely. Now a little bit more in here because I want this Eve to kind of really go in here. So I'm just going to go like this maybe, and then again, nudge it into position. Again, I think there's a bit too much of that curve. So there is a lot of kind of coming back and forth, a lot of trial and error for these. You may need to also rotate the text in different ways so that it matches perfectly. And I think this is something that I can work with. Okay, let's move on to another line, a complete. And I'm going to, again, duplicate that one and paste it over. Go to effects, and usually you're working kind of with a balance. So one is curving kind of inwards, then the other one is curving outwards. This is usually how this whole effect goes. And I have a sneaking suspicion that for this one, I'm gonna need to actually break it in two. Let's go back to effects and see if I can actually kind of salvage it a little so I can have a bit more of this, but I can already see that this will be way too long for this specific effect. So I'm going to go for a complete, and then maybe from the lead, I'm going to move it back just like this. And again, from here, I'm going to duplicate the other one because it's going to be easier to work with this kind of other side of the curvature, just like that. And again, nudge it slightly into place. Try to retain the more natural kind of letter spacing. This is how I'm going to go all around this subject, again, by copying little parts and then moving them around this lovely woman in here. Okay, so this is now completed. Of course, I needed to go back and readjust slightly kind of this side so that all of my text can fit in here. Of course, after I was done, I removed that text from the side because I didn't need it any longer. My tip from here is that if midway you find yourself lacking that space that you need to finish all of your sentences, all of your text, you can always just select all of your text from one side, nudge it with the keyboard arrows to the side so that it creates a bit more space for you to then kind of have more of that curvature and finish off your design. Of course, you do need to balance that space around your subject, so it's pretty much kind of the same and equal everywhere, but you do have some leeway. Like you can see in here that there's a bit more space, but it still works for that type of a design. Now this text is a little bit longer. There are full sentences in here, so you do need to make sure that you have enough space around it. But just to test out this text effect, you can also work with singular words. I've actually had a partial in here just like this, so you can see that I'm not really bothered with the whole word being visible because I've got that creativity here at the top. And what I've actually done for this one, you can see that I can just remove this layer at the top, and I've just duplicated that background like this, position it forward, and then I just dragged it from the sides because it's a nice kind of even line. And I've just covered this text just so that it aligns with that barrier. So again, you can be very, very creative with this text effect. I'm just going to go a little bit more precise in here, and you can have fun. Test it out, see how it works on shorter words, and then once you're a bit more advanced, you can move on to longer sentences. If you haven't seen my full Canva tutorial, then watch it now since it will make you more confident with Canva. And if designing still takes you way too much time, then check out this video right here too. Now drop a comment down below saying which one of these text effects is your favorite, and subscribe to my channel for more Canva tutorials and content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.